Hey everyone, how's it going? Back from the road trip. Gonna answer some questions for you tonight and, chill, really. Got a wicked bad sunburn on my neck. That's cool. Up in the mountains with Tom Barr collecting manzanita wood. Thought I was there just short enough, but, got some peeling going on. No good. Gonna answer some questions for the people that were in the chat beforehand. I like to hang out, about an hour beforehand. Tips on getting Shodanai puffers to eat clams on the half shell. You saw mine eating them. Usually when you can't get a fish to eat something, start with something it will eat. So if it loves to eat, let's say, frozen bloodworms, thaw the bloodworms, put them in a cup, and then put the clams on the half shell in there too. They'll kind of absorb some of that smell, and then you can dump like a little bit of bloodworms in there and the clam, and keep doing that. And after a week or two, usually they'll start eating it. Same thing if they were on pellets, whatever the food they're used to eating, you want to try and get that scent onto them. Foods that have a strong scent work best. So krill is a real popular one for arowanas, that kind of stuff, and even puffers. So sometimes you get them on freeze-dried or frozen krill. You can do the same tactic, maybe even salad shrimp, something like that. Do I dechlorinate my water on my home auto water system? No. Well, kind of. So I have a carbon block, which you can buy at like Lowe's and Home Depot. They're meant to treat 8,000 gallons or 20,000 gallons, whatever it is. Like, you read about it, and based on the size you get and how much carbon is in there is how much it can dechlorinate. And so I run all my water through that, and I only have chlorine and not chloramine. So I don't have that problem really. But there's still, like in the pond, sometimes I'll do it, but there's ways to get around that too. You can use an RV filter. They're about $20, and the RV filter goes on the end of a hose. You just screw it on, and it will take the chlorine out of your water too for 20,000 gallons or something like that. So yeah. Any tips for keeping tanks cool in the summer months? Chillers are way too expensive. So Drew, I have good news for you. Let me flip over here. I'm going to show you another channel you can watch that will help you with this. So we'll pop right over here. We're going to go to Real Fish Talk. And you can see, we're going to click on the channel here. This is another channel that I'm a part of. Joel and myself, we run this show. And managing heat in the aquarium. So we did an hour on how to do that. We talk about using evaporative cooling with fans. You can use ice. You can freeze water bottles. There's all these things you can do. Vary your light schedule, all that kind of stuff. We go into detail on that. So, next Tuesday is our 50th episode right here. So, we've got 50 episodes, and, we try and get guests on there. Like, we've had Gary Lang on. We've had Tazawa Tanks on. We've had, I'm trying to think who else. Dean's been on a couple of times. And so, yeah, there's cool stuff. You can even look into cool water fish and all that kind of stuff. So, a lot of content there. And we try to just do a long format, kind of like this. So it's like this, except longer. And it's not always strictly about fish. Sometimes other stuff gets mixed in there too. But, we have a good time. And it's also on the podcast. So if you don't know already, we have a app and a podcast and all that. So any iTunes, all that kind of stuff, you could download, just listen to it there if you're working or something like that. So while I'm here, I'm going to announce that the contest is over, or the giveaway is over for June. These were the winners right here. So these 4 people won $100 Aquarium Co-op gift cards or the Amazon gift card. They've all been sent out. So if you were those people, look in your email. And then the one for July has started. And so some different creators and stuff like that you can subscribe to and check out. And if you haven't checked out all these things, like George Farmer is known for aquascaping, credit pet keeping, does fish and bettas, but also does stuff with other animals. You've got, Rob at Flip Aquatics and Lucas Bretz, who's focused on shrimp. And you've got Jay Wilson, who's on African cichlids, and, Aquapros on aquascaping. So there's a lot of different stuff you can be checking out. And, check out some of their Instagrams as well. You see a lot of, if you don't know already, you get a lot of behind-the-scenes footage from a YouTube channel on the Instagram, because it's so much easier. You can do it while you're filming. You take a little picture, share a little clip, something like that. So, all right, let's grab some of the new questions here. Dylan says, I'm new to the hobby, and have I got any tips? My first tip, Dylan, is find a good local fish store. So there's no, if you're new, there's no real easy way to know who's good. But in general, a non-chain store. So try not to go to Walmart, PetSmart, Petco, Big Al's. You can go there if that's your option, but if you can find like, Jim's Aquarium or, Corey's Aquarium, there's likely you're going to be able to develop a relationship with them and you'll get to know them. Now, not all independent stores are good, so there's that, but in general, they're a step above. And if you can find a really good one that'll really help you get into this hobby, it really helps a ton. And then the other thing I would say is be patient. And it's super hard to do, but the longer you can wait, like if you set up your aquarium today and you wait 2 months before you put anything in, it'll be super easy. If you put it in 2 hours later, you're going to run into a lot of problems. So when, keep that in mind with the store too. The store might be like, yeah, you can start adding stuff right now and doing this. It's like, keep in mind the source of the information. When someone's getting money from you, their timetable might be a little bit more shorter than it needs to be. If I got to make rent, oh, geez, yeah, you'd be fine adding those today or something like that. So, just kind of play it smart, take it slow, and realize that you're going to learn a lot. There's going to be mistakes. Think of it like any other hobby. You've got to learn, and you're not going to be the best at the beginning. Unfortunately, in this hobby, that means some fish could die, and we're trying to avoid that. But think of it like if you're going to learn how to ride a dirt bike or something, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that you might crash in the first 5 times you ride or something like that. And like that, you could get hurt, you could even die, but you'll be doing everything you can to prevent those. And same with the people that are helping you learn. So, take it slow, take it easy, and enjoy. Also, don't get caught up in other people say that's cool, so I need to keep that. The stuff that's really common is the stuff that's really cool. Like, why is that so common? Because so many people love it. So things like guppies, goldfish, African cichlids, angelfish, platies, all that kind of stuff is like, everyone has that. Well, everyone has it for a reason. So, I would just not try to get something different. A lot of people fall into that trap of, ooh, I want to get something rare and hard to take care of. So, Unholy Orders asks if there's any special anchors or straps for tanks and stands to be ready for an earthquake. He lives in Southern California. There are. You can anchor a stand to the wall. Like, there's earthquake straps like you'd use for an entertainment center, which basically you're going to put anchors into studs, and then you're going to have like a canvas strap that you can kind of cinch down. The important part when you're doing that with an aquarium is if you only cinch down that stand, the tank's just going to crash onto the ground. So you got to cinch the aquarium too, and that gets a little bit more difficult because you kind of want to go through the middle of it, but then you can't see it very well. So it's not the easiest thing to really strap down. And barring really big earthquakes, usually you're okay. Like, stuff will shift, and if it can move together, usually you're okay. You're going to get water on the floor, like, no matter what happens, but hopefully you won't break a tank. If you make it too rigid, you can break the tank. So, would I come to Australia? Yes, I definitely would. The family's talking about making a trip to Australia possibly next year. So I would probably do a fan meetup because I don't get to go to Australia too often, and I'd want to see stuff and maybe nerd out with the local club or something like that. So it's definitely in the want to go. So yeah, it's on the. Part of that is Patreon, and I know it's kind of he's going to talk about Patreon, but if we talk about Patreon for a minute, we can explain, what happened this week, for instance. So, or this month, if you will, if I can get this to go away here. But this is the Patreon, and there's $985 that was donated or pledged by you guys, the fans. And what that does is you get some benefits, like there's a live stream about a week from tomorrow for the people that paid $5, and there's some other things. You get a $55 box, and you get to see behind the scenes stuff, and there's discounts, and there was like this video. So there's some extra stuff, but what does it do? That's the big question. Is like, well, what do you do with this money? So with this money, what we did is we went to Super Zoo. And so $985 didn't cover the whole trip, but it really helped out. And the theory would be if we can get to the goal, which is $3,000 per month, that is now a trip of Jimmy and I flying to Australia, and maybe we come speak at a local club, maybe we go collecting, maybe we film a ton, it's not maybe, we would film all of this stuff to make super cool videos, but it's an expensive thing. So a trip to Australia, bare minimum, is like $1,500, and kind of the way it works is like if I'm going to travel and show a ton of this stuff all the time, I need support to cover like the plane ticket and like the hotel. And then I'll cover the part where it's like, oh, you're gone for 10 days from your business, and I got to pay extra employees to work to cover what I was doing. So it's like, so even though it's only $3,000 for plane tickets and hotel, it actually cost me a bunch more of employees to do the work that I would have been doing. So it's to make it feasible for Aquarium Co-op. That's kind of the way it works. So, we got $985 last month, which was super cool. We had to buy hotel rooms and gas. We drove from Washington down to Nevada, did Super Zoo for a couple of days. Then we went over to California, and we went to Tom Barr, and we filmed there, collecting manzanita in the wild. Oh, while we were in Super Zoo, we also went and looked at rocks in the desert with Chris Lukup. And then we also, later that night in a hotel suite, we didn't buy the hotel suite, but filmed with Chris Lukup and Oliver Knott. So that'll be a cool, it was about a 45-minute to an hour-long discussion, which would be pretty cool. And then, we went to, Tom Barr's house. No, first we went to Tazawa Tanks, filmed his fish room. Then we went to Ocean Aquarium. That was the aquarium that does no water changes, that people were super excited about. Went back there, super good. And a lot of you guys have gone there, which is great because they need the sales, And then we went up to see Tom Barr. And then we went to Backyard Aquatics, who has a super cool fish room that I love. And then we drove up to Oregon, and we went and toured all of Aquapros tanks. And then we drove home. So, start to finish was 7 days on the road. So myself and Joel both were, off of work for 7 days. Jimmy was filming, so he was on work. And then there's the hotel rooms and all that kind of stuff, and, pet sitters and that kind of thing. So, it adds up to be quite a lot, and we're just trying to defer some of the cost to make it feasible to go all the time, because you guys seem to enjoy that. So I'm planning a trip back to China, and there's another trip to Germany coming up. And luckily we got at least, I think we've got one company that's going to pay for the trip to Germany, so that should be super cool. But yeah, that's what the Patreon's for. It just helps out to make cooler things happen faster. It's not that stuff won't happen without that. It's that just be a lot more, a lot more space in between them. So, but yes, definitely would love to go to Australia. How am I going to get all the tiger barbs out of the huge tank? Well, we're going to start with draining the water down. Maybe I got to drain 600 gallons till it's down to 200. And then, let's see if I can do it. That net right there, kind of just go along the front of it and get as many tiger barbs as I can out. It's not something I'm looking forward to by any means, but I'm looking forward to playing with some other fish. And I think I don't want to add anything in until I get those out, because every fish I add in is only going to make that harder to get those out. So, will I be going to the ACA? I will not this year. It's on the 4th of July, and I, hang out with the family. We actually have my wife's mother in town, and she's staying with us. So she actually came the day after we left for this trip, and we just got back yesterday. And so I got to spend some time around the house for that, because that's, can't always be going. And not only that, in 12 days, I leave for Peru. We kind of been planning that for a year now. So, I don't really want to go to another trip in between these trips. It's kind of hard to get caught back up from work and get ready to leave, if that makes sense. I'm sure you guys have gone on vacation before, and there's always a stack of stuff to get to when you get back. So, what am I putting in the 800 gallon? I think I'm going to put a ghost knife. I think I'm going to put maybe some blood parrots. I think a bunch of rainbow fish, maybe some geophagus, some juraparis. Trying to think of what else I've been thinking of that I really do want in there. More oddball stuff, though. Just fun stuff from I haven't had that in quite a while. I'd love to put that in there. And the tiger barbs, they'll definitely pick at things that are passive. The dojo loach hides a lot because it gets nipped at. They pick at things that are big. So the big clown loaches don't come out as much because the tiger barbs will nip at them a little bit. And, so other big stuff. I'm into big stuff. I always have been. So I don't know. I'm going to slowly add things in and just see how it goes. And, stop where you stop, or find, I got to add that. Maybe that'll be cool. Who knows where we'll go. What number of neon tetras, Malaysian trumpet sails, and ghost shrimp would you recommend for a betta tank that's 10 gallons? I would recommend no ghost shrimp. Add 6 Malaysian trumpet snails or something, and a group of like 8 to 10 neon tetras, and hopefully your betta gets along with them. The ghost shrimp, they're really hard to keep in true freshwater, and with the betta, it's probably going to pick at it, so it's kind of a, got two things going against it. So, the first live stream for high five emojis. Well, welcome to the live stream. Can you use children's sandbox sand for an aquarium? Oh, for a saltwater aquarium. Ooh, that's a bigger question. I don't think you would want to, because I think it's going to put your phosphates and silicates through the roof. That being said, I'm not a hardcore saltwater guy, but off the top of my head, I feel like that's a definite no-no. Yeah, I mean, there's even a case to be made for going bare bottom and things like that, but I would definitely do some more research into that before you pull that trigger. Are Narite snails the best algae cleanup crew? They're really good at, like green spot algae, but the best cleanup crew is kind of a variety. Like, you want something on spot algae, you want something on diatom algae, so either like a bristlenose pleco or an autosynclus, or even like ram's horn snails. And then let's say you got hairy algae, you might want a flagfish or a mono shrimp or Siamese algae eaters, maybe even some mollies. And so you kind of keep a little bit of all those together, and that will tackle your overall algae issue in general. Like, if you don't have very much algae, then maybe you don't need all those, but going long term works pretty well. So, when will I have the AquaClear 70-110 intake sponges in stock? I think this week. There's only like 250 of them coming in, so it's not a lot, but they should be coming in this week, and yeah, hopefully I can get them more regular. We're still waiting for China. They already, made the mold and done all that, but they haven't shipped any over. This is still from the original source that was out for like 8 months. And so I'm not going to rely on them going forward because I can't be out for 8 months. But we did get a big container from China in. It actually came in Saturday, so we weren't here, so all the employees went and did it. So shout out to them, and thank you for handling that. But we got a bunch of Ceru stone back in stock, which we're going to have a bunch of those packages going up online, so you guys can choose through those. What else did we get? We got, the cool new lava rock air stones that I'm really excited about, so we'll get those up on the website. And we got some pads and some bio rings and some other stuff, and so we're going to work on getting all that, hopefully before I go to Peru. Hope I don't run out of time, and, we'll see where it goes. Let's see. Have I ever used Rooiboas tea as a tannins and tank? No, I've never used tea bags or anything like that. I always just use wood or catappa leaves myself, just because usually I like the other benefits of either A, wood looks cool, or B, the catappa leaves are usually, for shrimp or something I already have. So I've got a 10-gallon nano tank with crystal red shrimp breeding, having trouble keeping the pH down to 6 to 6.4, and it's coming out of the tap at 7.3. I've got the Tropica aqua soil, choya wood, and plants. Any suggestions? Well, maybe get an RO unit. 2, if you're doing water changes, I would just tell you to stop. Like, most people change too much water on their shrimp tanks, in my opinion. Once you get it down, it should be pretty easy to keep down unless you're doing those water changes. So, if that soil's not getting it there for you, and keep in mind, the soil only does it for like a year and a half or something. So if you had it for longer than that, then that could be a problem. But RO unit's the only real true way to be keeping pH where you need it, when you need it. So, how did I gain knowledge about aquarium fish? Any good books or courses that you'd recommend if someone's interested? There are some. Let me think for a second. So the first thing I would say, join your local aquarium club. Learn from people that are older than you. Well, let me back that up. Not necessarily older than you. Learn from people that know more than you. There's always that 17-year-old kid that knows everything there is to know about X fish or something like that. So learn from those that know more than you, and just be hungry for knowledge. You could also pick up a part-time job in an aquarium shop. People don't realize that if you were to work at an aquarium shop, you're going to learn so much faster. So you can have someone that's been in the hobby for 10 years and someone that's worked at an aquarium shop for 6 months. Typically, the person at the aquarium shop will know more than the person who's been in for 10 years. And then there's there's educational stuff you can search out there, and let me try and think of. I'm trying to think of the school that has it. It's in Portland, I believe. Portland Ornamental Fish Program. They've got if I can find it. I can't find it, of course, but I know there is a you can get your degree in ornamental fish in Portland. Dr. Tim Miller Morgan. Let me see if I add that. Dr. Tim Miller Morgan, Portland. Let's see if I can, because he's got a YouTube channel. So it's Oregon Sea Grant University. All right, let me see if I can find this. See if I can find this channel for you guys. I found it. Cool. So let me take you on a trip with me. So here we are. We're at this is their YouTube channel for the fisheries program and all that. And there's a lot of stuff where you might not need to know. You might not need to know about caring for octopus, but if you were ever to get a job at like a public aquarium, you would need to know that. But there is a ton of stuff down here that is useful, like water flow management. I know there's ways to, like fish sedation. I've actually taken this class with Dr. Tim Miller Morgan at a zoo. And so it teaches you how to use MS-222, put fish under, clip the gills, do a biopsy, all that kind of stuff. So you can find some of this really kind of super nerd knowledge. And that's where I gain a lot of my knowledge is I've watched all this stuff. I've been to the classes, learning about just common health management. I went to the koi hobbyist class as well. So there's all these things that you can get if you want to, but the problem is like this is a 1 hour commitment that can be pretty dry. It's like you might not want to learn about koi. I guess that's another thing is a lot of information is transferable. So like when I was at the koi class, I learned that a lot of diseases and parasites from all around the world only live in certain parts of the world. So you might have one country that the fish are going to get velvet all the time from there, but they'll never get ick. And then the same thing for another country. They're getting ick, but not velvet. And so if you could learn all that and store it in your brain, which he knows, then you can know like, oh, is this velvet or is this ick or is this something else? And if you knew where the fish came from, you know it would be impossible for it to have X disease. And so what it really made me think of is it really does matter where we're ordering fish in, like into my store, right? So if I order it from one country and they're coming in bad, if I order it from another country, it might mean they never get velvet, so I never have to deal with that. If that's what was killing, let's say, some bettas or some rasboras. Rasboras kind of get velvet a lot. But I never really thought about it, and when they explain it, it's just like the water there, the water structure is either too hot or too cold or too hard or too soft to really let something like that thrive. And so that was, even though that was all meant to be about koi, it totally applies to all other tropical fish. And so I thought that was super useful and that kind of stuff. So are there books? There are books, but I have a hard time recommending books because I feel like most people aren't actually going to read them. I really like to take in information through podcast or listening. So putting on, maybe put something like this on in the background as you're driving, or, there's the Aquarius podcast or, any long format show, so you're not like looking at your phone, changing the next 3-minute video, but something that's like an hour. You can usually pick tips up and things like that. It used to be I spent a lot of time reading on forums, but they're not nearly such a thing. And I don't really recommend Facebook groups for learning, only because you never know the opinion, right? Like on a forum, it used to be you go, oh, this guy's got 1 billion posts and he's been around a long time. Maybe he's knowledgeable. And then Facebook, you have no idea if they've kept a tank for 5 minutes and that's their first post ever in the group, or they've done 1 billion posts. So, not that you can't learn from there, but, usually you learn when you know enough to know, oh, it sounds like they really know what they're talking about. So what would I put in a 3.5 gallon tank? I would probably keep just shrimp. That's what I would do. I work at a local fish store, so I'll just grow. I was growing something out in a bullfrog tank. I don't know. Must be missing part of the conversation there. How can you tell if an angelfish is male or female? A lot of times it'll come down to their forehead. They'll kind of have a bump on their forehead if they're male. That's kind of been bred out of some of the strains, so it's not always, but in general, a bigger bodied fish, when you grow it out, will be male. Just buddy up with an ichthyologist? Yeah, you could. I know ichthyologists. Most ichthyologists I know don't know very much at all about aquarium fish. They know a ton about like fish farming for food or the ocean or salmon, like that type of thing. I'm not saying that they wouldn't know anything like that, but just because they're an ichthyologist or a marine biologist or trained in X doesn't necessarily mean they're good at aquarium keeping. And that's very evident in public zoos and just things like that in general. Like they've got all this knowledge, but it's not necessarily applicable. Like they could totally tell you what diet that fish needs, and they could dissect it and show you all the organs, but then they wouldn't necessarily be fluent in like, oh, here's how you're going to cycle the aquarium, and this is how you work with these filtration types, and worrying about them getting sucked into filtration and that type of stuff. So what do I think of this stocking for a 55? 10 peppered cories, 12 snakeskin barbs, 12 candy cane tetras, 12 harlequin rasboras, 1 neon gourami, 8 Praecox rainbow, and 12 cherry barbs. It sounds like it's going to be a giant confetti party that would not be my style. Like, if you're asking, can you keep those in there? Yeah, definitely. You can keep tons of fish in a 55. I think you'd be much better off choosing, like, 2 different schools, and going, oh, I've got 36 snakeskin barbs and 36, salt and pepper cories, something like that. Or 36 snakeskin barbs, 30 Praecox rainbows, and a 10-pack of pepper cories. I think that's going to be an overall cooler tank than just 12 of, 5 different things, really. Do swordtails and gouramis need a lid? I know they could be jumpers. Well, technically, every fish can be a jumper. Those 2 fish aren't known to be excessive jumpers, but, they could jump out tomorrow for sure. I recommend having a lid just for evaporation purposes, keeping things in, and you can set a light on it, and, there's a lot of benefits. Let me make sure, I run all of my tanks except for my turtle tank with lids. So that's my opinion, though. What can I put in with a betta and a 5-gallon? My tank's so boring. Maybe some snails, but the reality is the reason that tank is boring is because it's only 5 gallons. It's a bigger tank, more options, bigger environment. So I would recommend, maybe upgrading. Find yourself a used 10-gallon or 20-gallon and start playing with it. It doesn't have to be expensive. You could take all the filtration, all the stuff you got in your 5-gallon, get yourself a $1 a gallon sale tank, $20, or get a used tank, something like that, and just use the filtration and start working from there. What's my favorite type of plant? If I could only pick one plant, I would choose Vallisneria. It'll fill in an entire tank, looks super cool, relatively easy to grow, and easy to find too. I like Crypts a lot. I like Anubias a lot, but if I could only pick one, that's the one I would pick. Is it okay to turn the filter off overnight? I had been doing it for years without thinking of it. Tropical community tank didn't seem to be affected. So in general, like if I turn this off overnight, tomorrow I'd probably have some ammonia in the water. But if you've always been doing it, if I did that every night and did it for a long time, the bacteria like in the gravel and on the aquarium sides and all that would probably handle it then. So if you've always been doing it, you're probably okay. If you're going to start doing it, realize there's consequences for turning off filtration. In my opinion, though, I don't turn them off in any of my tanks because I find it to not be needed. Do I have experience with Wallstad tanks? Definitely. I've run probably 5 or 6 tanks over the years. Did a lot of experimenting. They can be really good, but I think they're cheaper with worse results. So that's why I don't do it anymore. So like now, if I was like, ooh, I really want to do a planet tank, I'm just going to use like an Aquasoil or an EcoComplete and move on. Whereas like dirted tanks long term are a pain to keep going. Like, because every time you move a plant, you get that plume of dirt up there. So yeah, it's I guess it depends. If you're gonna play with it like outside, or you just want to be like, how does a dirted tank work? Then it makes sense. But once you kind of learn all that, then you go, oh, it's kind of just like this other way that's just superior. Okay, I'll just do it that way. And it costs a little bit more, but not that much more. Like if you're gonna do a 20-gallon tank, you'll probably spend $7 or $8 on the organic like Miracle Grow, or you're gonna spend like $25 on substrate. So it's an $18 difference, but it's worlds different a year down the road when you want to see and move plants and sell a plant or do anything like that. So it is that little bit more investment right at the beginning. So yeah. I was just notified my dinner's ready, but we got 30 more minutes to go. Do I watch Ivan Mikoji? I probably murdered that name, so I apologize. I used to watch it a lot. I thought it was cool. I haven't watched it lately because he doesn't put out much. And then once I learned that he was selling like all of his clips online, and like the main goal was to sell the clips to corporations, it soured me a little bit. But to be honest, if he started putting out lots of footage about underwater fish again, I would watch it just because no one else is providing that. It's one of the reasons I want to go to Peru, is I'm hoping the water will be clear enough to kind of show some of that stuff, because I thought it was wicked cool. I just wish that he had talked about it, you know? So you show this thing, and he's got like background music, but like, what was it like to get there? You know, like, oh, it's in, you know, it's a hike by 12 miles, or was it like, oh, it's behind the, you know, the grocery store or whatever, you know? And more context, and just, I don't know. I wanted to experience it more instead of just watching footage. More like a screensaver than it was informational, but still cool either way. And he was one of the only people doing it. So I'm told that Katie's mom has made Sloppy Joes, which she makes really good ones. So I'm excited. What do I do for temperature control in my fish store? When it's cold, I use a 5,000 watt heater that heats my store, and then I use 2 dehumidifiers that also adds heat, and we've insulated as much as we can, and we try to, you know, the air pumps are up high, so they take the hottest air in the room and they put it through the tank, so that helps circulate air through there. And then in the summer, we have a mail slot in the door, so we keep that open so air can go through there, and then we have a big vent in the top of the roof, and we put a box fan that just basically gets a ton of air going through. And there's not a lot you can do during the day. If it's 90 degrees out, it's kind of like just 90 degrees. But at night, it cools down, and that's when you can cool all the tanks back down. And so all that water has thermal mass, and if you can keep it cool, it'll stay cool. But as it gets hot, it'll stay hot. So it can take a few days to change it any big, you know, one way or the other. So how many discus can you have in your 125? How many discus can you keep alive? I can keep at least 100 in there, you know, but I have auto water change, that type of thing. I would say somewhere between 6 and 10 probably. Usually if you're asking that question, means you probably don't know the answer, which means you're probably new to discus, which means err on the side of caution. So Caden says, my local fish store is going downhill. Anything I can do as a shopper to help them? So first I would ask, sorry, this Diet Coke is making me burp. I would ask, and maybe you can put that in there, why are they going downhill? Is it fish are more sick? Is it maybe they've had an attitude change where they're, you know, like being more shisty, like, oh, we're going to make more money and give less customer service? If it's one of those things, I'm not sure there's anything you can do. If it purely is, like, summertime's always kind of a time where you make less sales, so that's kind of a problem. But if it's like just they're not selling enough, but they're really good store, they're good people, they got a lot of good things going for them, probably the best thing you can do is help by talking about them in a Facebook group, you know, for locals or something like that. Like, getting the word out is probably the best thing you could do. You could try like a meetup where you're like, hey, I'm going to sell some plants or blah, blah, blah. Like, y'all want to meet up at the store? or something like that. But basically awareness. Like as long as they're a good shop and you can honestly recommend them, the best thing you can do is recommend them and get them as much business as you can. If they've got something else going on, well, then that's much harder. It's kind of hard to stop them from just being, dishonest or something. So, let's see here. So LR Brett says 100 discs would be epic. It would. I know in a 55 we can keep at least 40 to 50 in there because we're auto water changing. We're changing so much water in there all the time at the store. And I know, you can keep them in super high densities, but then you become a slave to the water change. Just like almost anything in our hobby. We can push it to the limits, but do we want to push it to the limits? And in general, I don't even keep discus in my own personal collection because I don't like the upkeep on them. How many cherry shrimp in a 2.5? I bet you can keep upwards of 20. I've seen cherry and crystal be bred in there. How many tiger barbs can I stock in a 60-gallon with an FX4 as well as an undergravel filter? I currently have 16. Probably as many as you want. 50, 100. You'll probably at a certain point you get diminishing returns, right? Like, so you've got 16 now, and maybe 30 of them will look super cool, but 40 looks the same as 30. 50 looks the same as 30. I would keep adding a few until you're like, yeah, I got that big school. It looks good. Like I would wager in here, there's 300. I bet you 150 basically looks the same as 300. I can't know that till I take some out, but I don't think you'd be like, oh man, it looks horrible now. It just looks slightly different. So, with something like that, I would get a big school till you're like, oh, it looks cool, and then figure out what you're going to add with it. I like variety. It's hard to explain, but when a fish gets in the right group, they act different, right? So, like, have you ever seen rummy nose tetras or neon tetras or anything like that going in a circle around a decoration, like in a store or someone's tank? That's them, like, they're super happy, right? But with 30 of them, they, like, never do that. You need, like, 100. Same thing with those tiger barbs. They will act different when you hit that right number. And it's hard to know what the exact right number is because it depends on male-female ratio, the way the tank's laid out, what else is in the tank. And so, adding, let's say you add 10 at a time, and you'll know when you're like, yeah, I added 10. Oh, well, they're really doing this cool thing. You'll probably just know that that's where you want to be, and don't think that if I add 10 more, they're going to be even cooler. They'll probably just be the same. So, man, I got something in my eye here that is killing me. How are the turtles doing? Doing good outside. Trying to think of, I got the mini musts. They're doing fine as well. Yeah, I can't really complain. I need to play with them some more, but I'm stretched for time. So, the Technotron was thinking about doing an overwinter outdoor pond. Would going with shrimp, goldfish, koi. Oh, would be going with goldfish, koi, and shrimp be the way to go? And how would I go about doing it? Well, the goldfish and the koi are probably going to eat all the shrimp, unless you had like a bog or something like that. So I wouldn't necessarily mix all those. But there's other stuff you could probably do too, like maybe white clouds or rice fish. If you want to stay with all small stuff. I've overwintered cherry shrimp several winters. But in general, depending on how cold your climate is, the bigger the pond, the easier it is to fight off that cold going down into the ground. Like this pond we're building in my front yard, we're going to try to go down 4 feet. Our frost line's 18 inches, so that way it'll have the core temperature. So what that means is even if it's 0 degrees outside on the surface, the core temp will still be down at like 52 degrees, right? So like no matter what, as long as we have a ton of water volume, it'll pretty much never get that cold at the bottom. And what a lot of people don't realize is when you're in these harsh conditions for a pond, you need the water to stratify. So what that means, so if this 800-gallon tank is a pond, we need the water. So the water at the top, if it's snowing outside, it's going to be really cold, right? And then the water at the bottom in the ground will be warmer. Let's say it's 50 degrees, right? if we have a pump that's taking this cold water or the warm water from the bottom and pumps it back up through a filter, and in the top, it's going to circulate and mix all that water. So we need it so that cold water stays at the top, warmer water stays at the bottom, the fish will stay at the bottom where it's warm, and they'll be okay. So, a lot of people let their air pumps go or their filtration go during the winter, and that's, doesn't let the water stratify, and that can be bad for them. So it's kind of a tricky thing. You don't want them to run out of oxygen either, but if you oversize the pond and undersize your stock, it makes it a lot easier. So, what size aquarium would you quarantine 8 to 10 2.5 inch fish? I would, if it was me, as small as a 10 gallon. I pretty much quarantine everything in 20 gallons because I feel like 20 gallons are a sweet spot between size and cost, right? If you can get one for $20 at a Petco and they're 2 feet, whereas a 10 gallon is 20 inches and they're just a little bit wider. And I feel like 20 gallons just gives you twice as much safety as a 10 gallon. It doesn't cost you that much more in meds, but you start getting to like 55, 75s, costs a lot in meds. And depends on how often you're going to quarantine as well. If you're going to quarantine every single week like the store, we run 11 gallons, and that's just because it saves on meds, it makes water changes easier, all these things easier. But if you're doing once a month and, maybe a little bit extra time away from the water changes can help you get through it. So, how many Cory cats in a 40 breeder? A lot. When we moved our orange lasers, I think we had over 100 in there. And they were breeding up a storm and that type of thing. So you can keep a lot. There's a lot of floor print in there. You'll probably your wallet will probably give out before. So, Casey Clark's wondering about a striped dogface puffer. Unfortunately, I've never kept a saltwater puffer, so I don't have much advice for you. And I don't want to hazard guesses and then have it go wrong. So I would just tell you seek out someone that's more well versed in that. Lumpy Dog says, what do you miss about the early days of Aquarium Co-op before all the store and internet success? Congrats on every level. Keep up the good work. I think about that a lot. There's a lot of things I miss. Before the internet, before I was online, I loved that I could do anything I wanted and didn't have to share it with anyone, right? So the minute I went online, if I was breeding a guppy, a molly, a platy, anything like that, people would come to the store and just beg to get some, and that kind of ruined the experience. So I stopped actually breeding for a long while because that was not fun. When you've got hundreds of people just harassing you for something that you were just I just wanted to do it because I wanted to do it. I don't want to make this big thing, and now you got to promise your firstborn to someone. The very earliest days in the store, we used to be closed on Thursdays. I really love that, and I've been thinking about that even as recent as this last week. I was thinking if I closed the store and the warehouse down on Thursdays, this would give a day that all of us could be together if we wanted. We could go to a baseball game or something like that. It's also one of the worst days to ship. It would be Thursday. And then it gives us an opportunity to get stuff done in the store and the warehouse without customers being there. It's actually really hard to get that kind of stuff done now. But I started thinking about, I guess the conversation started with some businesses being closed on Sundays, like Les Schwab and Hobby Lobby and that kind of stuff. And I was talking about how it was super useful to have that one day a week where we were closed to be able to get stuff done and just always had a day off. I think it would alleviate a lot of stress, and it allows you to put your best employees on most of the days. So if you're only open 6 days a week, someone works 5 days, there's only one day where your best employee isn't working. And I shouldn't say employee, but your A team. Right now, let's say you've got half the team is amazing, half the team is training to be amazing, and you're open 7 days, then you've got at least 2 days and 2 shifts that don't have that. So I do miss being smaller, but I don't miss how stressful it was. There was definitely lots of times where it was very close to going out of business. I won't say lots of times, but a couple of times, very stressful. And what I don't miss is in the summer, right now, it's July, there'd be days where you'd only get $100 of sales in the retail store. That pretty much never happens now that we have online. Online, stuff's coming out. I can come on, I can talk to you guys, and I can, make stuff happen. But it was, I remember, it was the second year, maybe the third year I was open, there was a July where I lost $14. So I worked, 100 hours in the store every week for a month and was only paying myself like $500 like a month, right? So I do all that and I lost $14. It would have been better for me not to be open at that point. And so that's really stressful when you're working that many long hours. And so you got to think of it like, so you work 100 hours, that's a long time. And then you're super stressed out because you're losing money. So then you're like not as nice to your wife and people around you. And so that's even worse. And so there's all these things that are not fun. And so I don't miss those times at all. And now I get to travel a lot, which is fun, but it's its own stress. And we're managing lots more money and product and people, It's a lot easier to piss 5 people off a day when you're dealing with 500 of them than if you only dealt with 20 of them. Like, it's really easy to make 20 people happy consistently every day, but when you and all of your employees were handling 500 people a day, it's easy to misinterpret something, something gets broken in the mail, or we don't have quite enough time, or we didn't answer the phone ring by the second ring. There's all these things that come into play that, definitely are stressors for everyone involved. So, but yeah, I wouldn't trade. I wouldn't go back to there because I like where I'm at. It's, like I would, as a small store, I would have probably never had an 800-gallon aquarium, which is super cool. I'm thankful for that all the time. I wouldn't have Jimmy working with me all the time. I wouldn't have I'd have way less employees. It used to be for like the first 2 years, it was me plus one other person. And we eventually had to go, we thought we had to go to, okay, let me back that up. Being the retail store and being closed on Thursdays, when you miss someone that wanted to spend money and you're already like struggling, you end up being open that 7th day. Now we're not that tight, so I think we could give up that 7th day, and that would be amazing for everyone just to be, away. But there's its own logistics. Like right now, we currently land fish when they come in. We land them on a Thursday. I go film and all that. And if you land fish, let's say you do it on Wednesday, you don't really want to do it on a Wednesday because then on Thursday, no one's there, right? And so either A, you're going to go in and check in all the fish. That's not a day off anymore. Or B, you've got it so that no one's watching them. So then you go, okay, well, maybe I'm going to land the fish on Monday. It's just you change up a bunch of different things. And you realize, you can't land fish on a Monday because people have to ship out on a Monday. So then it becomes Tuesday's the first day you could really land fish. And so it just gets a little bit different. We used to always land fish on Tuesdays, I believe. But as employee schedules and that kind of stuff reworked, that's where we're at now. So yeah, a lot of stuff's changed. What kind of rainbows am I going to get? Asked Steamfight Aquatics. So for a different tank, I want to get the pygmy rainbows. But I would really love some, basically all the colored up males. Like I would love some like Irian reds or Millennium reds. I would love Bozemanii, yellow axelrodi, Kamakas. I would love a giant group of really big turquoise rainbows as well. Like I just want to throw a bunch in there and feed them a ridiculous amount so they're big and cool. Because in my opinion, no one's really got a giant tank of rainbows going. People got some 125s and that kind of stuff, but I think they could get taller and bigger, like in an 800 gallon. They got all that space, and I think it'd be fun. So we'll see. Did I get the fitness up for Peru and hit my goals? So no, I did not work out every day, but I would say my fitness is better than I thought. When I started traveling to China and Germany and stuff like that, we had like how many steps we were taking, and I realized every day when I travel, and we did this even in Super Zoo and stuff like that, when you go to these conventions, you're walking so much. I realized that I can do 15, 16 miles a day pretty easily, and I know we won't be doing that much walking. So I'm not that worried about it. And we also hiked up into the mountain and stuff like that, and I'm not going to say like I'm as fit as Jimmy or Joel was, but I held my own, so I'm not that worried about it. I was more worried that I'd be crazy out of shape, but once I learned, I'm like, I'm doing 15, 16 miles, like I won't say like it's nothing, it's like I'm running the whole way, but it's fairly easy. And so I thought, well, I'll be able to, it might be hard times, getting out of the mud or something like that, but I think I'll be all right. Let's see. I manage a restaurant, and one of the best things we ever did was close on Sundays. The maintenance and things we can get done on that time is amazing. Also, having a guaranteed day off is really nice. I hear that, Michael Faulkner. There's so many projects that have taken me days because I have to try and do it while the store is open versus closed. And there's a lot of people that go, I can't remember that you're not open on a Thursday, but I am considering it. I got to really crunch numbers and look at what it means and see if the biggest opposition, honestly, is what the internet will think. So if I close on a Thursday and we don't ship, then, if you place an order on Wednesday and you're going, they didn't even ship it till Friday. I thought they said they shipped quick. We do ship super quick. We ship, in my opinion, faster than any other business my size. Like, we're super quick. Do I want to give up that reputation? But I really do want to invest in my employees. So I'm thinking about testing it. Even maybe it was test for the month of August or something. Okay, we're closed Thursdays. Do we absolutely love it? What do we like? What do we hate? Because the other thing too is all the emails we get will stack up. So come Friday, it's like, oh, geez, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails to catch up on. It could be one of those things where it's worse somehow. So yeah, just something we're thinking about. And maybe it's one of those things like we just close the retail store, not the warehouse. Who knows? But I really would love it so that all the employees just know, like, oh yeah, Thursday is off, or Tuesday, or whatever the day is like its weakest. In most fish stores, it's Tuesday or Tuesday or Thursday typically, but I'm not quite sure. But Tuesday is a good shipping day, so I don't really want to close then. So we'll have to see. I got to look this up. What are my thoughts on Luxius cornatus as pets or bait? I have to look because I don't know what that is. So, I don't know it by the Latin name anyway. Oh, just a common shiner? I've only kept like the rainbow shiners and stuff like that as a personal pet. But as bait, I don't know. I'm not really in the fishing scene, so Jimmy's tearing this place down. So I don't know. I don't know if I have an educated opinion on that. Like, I feel like I'm okay with it, but like, for all I know, without doing more research, like, that's the number one invasive species all around the country or something. Like, oh, didn't know that, So, yeah. The clown loach hide under the wood is me when I don't want to wake up. Yeah. They don't like the light. They knocked over my log, too. You see how that log used to be up there? They knocked that over while we were on vacation, so we gotta do some rescaping in there. Are fancy goldfish fry hard to keep? No, I wouldn't say goldfish fry are any harder to keep than other fry, really. They're pretty easy because they can take baby brine right from the get-go. Close the shop on Thursday and close the warehouse on Sunday. Yeah, we do a lot of prep on Sunday for Monday. Monday is a huge shipping day for us. So we prep a lot of Easy Green by putting them in the bottle. All the dry good orders we can pack that day. So we actually do a decent amount of work on Sundays. But yes, finding the correct balance is what I'm looking into. And I don't know that I'll ever find it, but you can only look into it. You can't always know. Let's see here. If I was stuck with only one fish forever, what would it be? I think I would choose fancy guppies. They breed a lot, bunch of different colors. I always love a tank that's absolutely stuffed to the gills with them. Yeah, I think I would choose that. I love clown loaches. There's a lot of fish I love. But if I only could have one, guppies are pretty awesome, I think. Is anybody recycling water change water by storing it in a heavily planted container until the nitrates are reduced to very low levels? No one, I don't think, is doing it that way, Lumpy Dog. The problem is you'll run out of a lot of minerals, and you might get really acidic water doing that. So you still pretty much have to reconstitute it and do all that, and it becomes a lot of work. I basically feed my garden with my water change water as much as I can. Who is my Easy Green manufacturer? That's asking businesses where they get stuff wholesale. Pretty much no one will ever admit that, because that's how I make my money. So, unfortunately, I can't tell you. All right. What do fish stores use to filter a wall of tanks? A single sump running to each one, or does it have its own filter? Depends on the store, Trevor. Petco's, PetSmarts, they use 2 or 3 big sumps. My store is all sponge filters, individually filtered, auto water change system. Like Petco's, typically, they'll have like 6 tanks all on one sump, and they'll kind of put units in there called a Mars system is how they do it. But yeah, it totally depends on the store. For me, it's a no-brainer to only have each tank on its own filtration and separate so it doesn't spread disease. So, what do I feed fancy goldfish fry? You hatch out live baby brine every day, Doug. These are questions you can Google real easy. There's like Goldfish Garage. There's plenty of Coco's Goldfish forums. There's a lot of stuff you could research on how to raise goldfish fry. How long do I wait to add a monoshrimp to a new tank? I don't add anything. I try not to. Well, I shouldn't say I never do, but my wisdom would be never add something live to a tank until you have algae growing. Once you have algae growing, it's game on. Have I ever been noodling? No, I've never. I'm not a big fisherman, so I've never really done that. I would much rather catch with a net and look at stuff. And you know, if people are fishing, I'm trying to see like what's that small thing? It could maybe be kept in an aquarium or something. So, are Bolivian rams or pistos more hardy? I'd say Bolivian rams are. Those things are bulletproof. My local fish store has a set of 6 tanks on an Eheim external filter. Oof. 6 tanks sharing water just seems like a disaster. How long have I been in the hobby? I think it's 12 or 13 years now. Maybe 13? I want to say I started when I was 22 or 23, and I've been working in fish stores for 11 of those years. So a lot of it was pretty much hardcore learning every single day, all day long. Is it known that jungle val and dwarf sage do not grow well together due to allelopathy? I don't think it's documented, Jeff. I've seen some cases of that kind of stuff, but I don't think anyone has really gone down the allelopathy for aquatic plants. I hope someday that exists, but it's pretty hard experiment to really run, and I think it would take like 10 years, but I don't think it's been well documented for sure. Setting up a 375-gallon tank with 2 Eheim 2262s, would a third be overkill? Probably. Probably more than one is overkill, honestly. In my opinion, more canister filters typically is just overkill. You'd be much better off running pre-filter sponge, a hang-on back that you can run filter floss in and change all the time to get fine particles out. Like 2 of the same filter typically is not as efficient as varying it up. So before you get a third, I would for sure think about doing something else filtration-wise before going to the third one. I have yellow platies that all have a few blackened scales on their yellow part. Is that normal? Probably. It's probably just in their genetics that they're carrying some of that WAG gene or something like that, which is pretty normal. So is erythromycin really being discontinued? I don't know, John. This thing happens about every 10 minutes. Someone goes, did you know that this is going to be around? In the last week, I've heard erythromycin is being discontinued, clout's being discontinued, and stuff like that. And then when I talk to reps and stuff, they're like, yeah, I don't know. That's not happening. So, a lot of times what happens is they're going to say like, oh, we're discontinuing erythromycin. And then it's like, oh, they're just not using it for this specific thing with humans. And, so maybe it'll go away and I'll find an alternative. But to the best of my knowledge, I just ordered about $10,000 worth of erythromycin this week. No harder to get than it was last week or a year ago. So, we'll have to see. But in general, there's a lot of money to be made with meds, and so it doesn't usually go away if the companies can help it. So usually at a fish store, we get a much longer heads up. But I've heard erythromycin's getting outlawed or banned 20 times at this point. Yet here we can still get it just fine. Usually what happens is like if API or someone doesn't want to re-up on their FDA permit, that's when it's hard to get, but they do because there's so much money into it. So, I'm not saying it's not, but to the best of my knowledge so far, I would say it's going to be able to be gotten. Oh, there's my Sloppy Joe. If I have a longer, in-depth fish question to ask, is there a way to send an email? Yep. Just go to our website, send an email. It's team@aquariumcoop.com. Someone from the store will answer you. We limit it to one per day. If you ask one every single day, then we limit you to like one a week. We answer a lot of emails, to say the least. And so make sure that it's an email that is not easily Googled. You've got all the information, so we don't have to go, you didn't say what size aquarium or what fish or all these things. Like, make it so that we can, actually answer the question. And then when we answer, don't instantly fire back, what about this? Because it's like, well, you go to the bottom of the queue, and that's not the way the system's really meant to be used. It's like, we're not Google, but we will answer as many questions as we can every day. So, all right, my dinner's here. It's 6 o'clock. Go enter that promo. If you just came in, go to here, aquariumcoop.com, and enter all these ways to win gift cards. We're giving away 4 of them this month. So get in on that, and we're going to do that like every month. So may as well get started now. And as always, buy all of our stuff. And I will see you guys Tuesday morning? Wednesday morning. Wednesday morning, I'll be live again for the 4th of July stream. So hopefully you guys show up for that. And if I can find the right button, we will end this shindig, which I can't. All right. See you later, guys, and good luck.